What's up, Earth Rockers? It's your boy Shovatar here. I'm back again to talk about the first of many main courses. If I said that the last video was an appetizer, I guess that makes this the main course. This is a no-hit. Let me turn this down. Should sound normal to you, but it'll be loud to me. This is a no-hit of Dracula's Curse on the Sypha route. Dracula's Curse, in this most recent batch of runs, because I did a lot of runs in this game. This is the first of like several. And in this latest batch of runs, I think it's possible that Dracula's Curse may have usurped Rondo of Blood's position as my favorite Castlevania game. That's a very bold statement, but I think that's how I feel, and I'll sort of explain why as I get into all these. I'm sorry that first video that I posted ended up being so long. I'm going to try to keep the pausing and the yapping to the minimum in this one, which should be easier because there's more downtime. It's a longer run in general, so there's more time for me to explain things. Right off the bat, I want to clarify that I picked up the dagger at the start here, but I don't intend to actually use it for anything. I only picked it up so that I had a sub-weapon so that way I could dump hearts, because this is not... I don't know if I'm going to label this as a speed run when I upload it yet. I guess you could call it a speed run. I did give myself a time limit for this run. I wanted to do sub 35 for the Sypha route, because that was just what felt feasible based off of the knowledge of the game that I had and what I wanted to go for. And so this Medusa head room is the first part of the game that's really tricky, because you want to jump over them if you can without slowing down. But actually, I'm going to go back. I know I said I wouldn't do this too much, but I have to kind of explain this because this is like a particular thing. What the heck? Okay. So you want to jump over the Medusa heads if you can. But the problem is that these little clear blocks will flip out underneath you and drop you to the lower path. But there's a couple of quirks about these blocks. One of them is that you can actually land on them without immediately falling through. Like here, I do land on it and I do trigger it, but by the time it actually starts flipping, I'm past it. So it's just about being able to jump at safe times. And if you do this screen at the same pace every time, then you'll know when the Medusa heads are going to come, and you'll know that you'll be jumping at like safe intervals. So it's just about doing it the same way every time and figuring out where the Medusa heads are and figuring out when you can jump and sort of slowing down or speeding up as necessary. I did this level so many times because this was a lot harder to get than the Castlevania 1 footage that I got, and I whipped those two zombies really promptly because I'm pretty sure I just knew that this was the pattern they were on, because like I said, I did this level a million times. Every time you screw up a run, you have to do level 1 again, which means that you do level 1 more than any other level in the game by a very wide margin. Also, the fact that I'm not using the dagger for anything means that I don't care about picking up the axe back in that zombie room. Typically, that part of the room where you have to jump over that gap and there's a torch with the axe can be a huge problem, because sometimes you don't want to pick up the axe. Sometimes you want to leave level 1 with a specific sub-weapon. You have to like delay the swing, and it's really annoying. Speaking of things that are annoying, I want to talk about this particular jump right here, because this is also like an important sub-weapon thing. So if all you do is jump on these little blocks, then like jump and then falling whip the zombie, which is what you would be inclined to do, you might end up in a position where your falling whip swing will break that torch above the zombie right there. I'm pointing at the screen again. Will break that torch, and you don't want that because there's a dagger in that torch. So if you do care about what sub-weapon you get to the end of level 1 with, and you don't want to do that, the solution is to do this right here, where I jump to the very edge of these blocks. Then I do a jump at a falling whip. So that way my whip swing doesn't hit that torch. Doesn't matter in this run, but I did it like that anyway, just because that was the way that I got used to doing it. Based on other runs where I do care about getting out of the run with a specific sub-weapon. And I'm going to let this play out, and then I'm going to go back and explain what's going on here, because this was like a very specific thing that actually kind of salvaged the run and like made it doable. Okay, so it probably looked really weird, and it is really weird. The boss of level 1 has a property that only a couple of bosses in Castlevania 3 have, which is that they will get like, they'll like jerk back a little bit, they'll like jitter back a little bit when you hit them. And what I want to do with this boss in level 1 is I want to find a way to kill this level 1 boss without taking damage with just the whip, because that means that I have way more options with like what sub-weapon I can get out of level 1 with. It doesn't matter with this run, it matters with other runs. Because otherwise, if you wanted to no-hit this guy, you would probably need to get the holy water, which I could have gotten, but I find the whole sequence of getting the holy water to be kind of annoying. I'm actually going to go all the way back and show you this. Don't worry, this won't take long. So yeah, that torch above where I am right now in this particular spot, that's where the holy water is. So in order to get that in a level 1 run, you'd have to go up the stairs or jump up that gap, hit the torch, get the holy water, then go back up the stairs again. I just find that really annoying, so I didn't bother doing it because I didn't technically need it. I don't think, and I don't know if it would have been any faster. Maybe a little bit, but the point is I didn't need it. So what I do here is I get in position over here, and then I whip the Bone Soldier 4 times. And that's very important because on that 4th whip, you'll see that he gets pushed back a little bit. And that's important because that means that then I have to real quick turn around to do this jump to get away from him. And that's important because that seems to set him up for a particular position where when he does this jump up from that lower ledge to the platform here, then I can jerk him back in midair again when he's on his way down towards me. And then he lands like kind of just on the ledge. Like you would see those like knees are bent there. That's like the process of him landing on the ledge. Then when I keep hitting him, I keep jerking him back, and I like keep him stumbling on the ledge until he dies. And I don't know how long you can do that, maybe forever, but you don't have to do it forever to kill him. You just have to do it until he dies. So that was like super, super important for the other routes, was that particular like stun lock, kill the boss, no hit, kill the boss with just the whip was really, really important to get that down consistently. Because the sub-weapons in level 1 are really important for the other routes. And you might be thinking, you can no-hit this guy with the whip on Dracula's Curse too, but it's way easier in Dracula's Curse, because in Dracula's Curse you can stand on the platform to the right and crouch and whip his head. But in the JP version that doesn't work. He's like not tall enough or something. So you have to do that weird maneuver to... if you want to no-hit kill him with just the whip on JP, that's what you have to do. So level 3 is pretty straightforward. Not really going to be anything too fancy here, and it's going to be pretty slow. I don't have any like speed run. Great. You know what? That's okay, because I don't have anything to talk about right now. I'm going to do the owls pretty much the way that you would do it in like a normal casual playthrough, right? Just wait for every single one of them and kill them. And really the only way that you can do this differently if you're going for no hit is to come in here with the stopwatch, but I don't want the stopwatch for this part. I want the cross to kill the Cyclops boss, because the Cyclops boss is actually kind of a huge problem in the context of a speed run or a no-hit run in certain respects. Not really in this run, but in other runs, his existence is a problem, and I'm going to have to clarify that when I get to the runs where that's the case. Here, it's just a matter of, like, it means you have to get the cross and get the cross ready for him before you get to him. The Cyclops is the boss of this level. Really all it means in this run is just that I can't come in here with the stopwatch and then just stopwatch spam past all the birds, which is pretty easy to do because that whole bird area is very generous with torches that drop hearts, so it's very easy to like pop the stopwatch, then get 5 hearts, then pop the stopwatch, then get 5 hearts. But here, because I want the triple shot cross for the Cyclops, that's not an option. And I'm only one person. I swung my whip there as I was falling, because if you fall too far in Dracula's Curse, then you'll have this like landing animation that takes some time to recover from. But if you fall while whipping, then that seems to prevent that landing animation from happening, and you'll just immediately start moving when you land. I'm not sure how much time that saves exactly, but it felt faster, so I did it whenever it seemed like it would be necessary to do it. It's not every time you fall off of a ledge, it's just if you fall from far enough. I did not do it there because I didn't want to whip that torch and accidentally pick up... I think there's an axe in there, or maybe there's just a heart, I don't know. Maybe I could have done it there. This part... Okay, so it's funny... When I first thought about doing a no-hit for this game, which I've done no-hits before, but I did segmented no-hits, which means that I did them in like multiple parts. And that's like completely different from doing a single segment run. It's like I cannot overstate how much easier it is to do anything in these games segmented. And I was really worried about this part because like destroying these things creates these like spores that are tough to avoid. And I was like, how am I ever going to do this? But it turns out if you get there on the right timing, you can just jump over them. And if you hit the time, if you hit like the jumps right, you can just jump right over all four of them and they just don't hit you. And I was like, wow, that's a huge, huge relief because I was really worried about how I was going to deal with that otherwise. This guy's pretty scary, but you just have to do a falling whip to kill him. Um, if you try to jump off the ledge to falling whip him with a jump, then he can like dip behind you or like move in some way you don't expect. You'll accidentally fall on top of him. The safest way to do it is just a falling whip. Walk off the edge and hit the whip button. I could have jumped over those first 5 hearts because I actually don't need this many hearts, but that's okay. I preemptively throw the cross at the spider, and then here I deliberately wait at the bottom of the stairs to kill that spider that comes down, because trying to duck under 2 different spiders and quickly get down that staircase at the end of level 3 is just a huge, huge danger area, because they can like, let me go back actually. Because they can fire Here's what happens if you don't kill those spiders, is they'll either hit you en route to the staircase, or if they're on like a different spawn timer, then like you can be on this staircase and they'll be throwing a spider at you that you can't avoid because you're stuck on the stairs. So that's why I take the time to kill that spider and play that at that specific pace. It's so that way I'm going down the stairs when they're not firing any spiders at me, which is the problem otherwise. This is a pretty normal Cyclops kill, and the Cyclops is actually... So one thing that I said at the start when I said that I think that Dracula's Curse is better than Rondo, I also think that the JP version is way better than the US version, and the Cyclops has a lot to do with that. And it's pretty... Watch the meat in this upcoming cutscene, by the way, because it does something funny. It's kind of hard to describe why I like the JP Cyclops better without having footage to compare to the US Cyclops. Basically, he's less aggressive and he doesn't charge as much in the JP version, which means that he's much more manageable. Yeah, look, it turned into a bunch of katakana. I don't know what that says exactly. Chitatsu or something? I don't know what that means. No idea what causes that. But so the US Cyclops is like harder to fight, but he's more unmanageable. And the JP Cyclops is frankly much easier, but he's also less of like it's less like random. Because the charge that the Cyclops does can be very like restrictive in terms of the options you have to deal with it. In the JP version, he kind of just like meanders around on one side of the screen if you have the triple shot cross like that, and it's really just a matter of like how fast you can kill him, or then can you kill him at all. So I swapped to Sypha to pick up the Stopwatch for reasons that will become apparent later on. I would be playing this completely differently if this wasn't a no-hit. I wouldn't bother getting this. Actually, no, I probably would still get the Stopwatch anyway, and I'll explain why when we get to it. I'm also going to stockpile a bunch of hearts for what I plan on using the Stopwatch for later. The early game is going to be very Trevor heavy, then it's going to be Sypha for most of the mid game. Trevor's going to go away for a while until the late game where he's going to come back again. And I'll explain the reasons for all that as they get there, but this is a good time actually to explain a principle behind Dracula's Curse speed running, which again, you know, this is kind of a speed run. Sub 35 is you know, no hit sub 35 is pretty good, in my opinion. But the thing about Dracula's Curse speedrunning is you have to be careful about when you switch characters, because switching from one character to another takes about 4.5 seconds. So let's say you're in a situation where you want to do one thing as Trevor, then another thing as Sypha, then another thing as Trevor again. In order to do that, you have to swap to Sypha, then back to Trevor, and that's 9 seconds. So doing that is only justifiable if that switch saves you more than 9 seconds. Like if the character that you swap to could do that particular thing 9 seconds faster than the character you already were using. And since that's usually not the case, swapping in Dracula's Curse speedruns is usually kept to a minimum. Here I'm going to do it either if it's going to save time or if it makes the run safer, if it like guarantees I don't get hit. Those are the two reasons why I would swap characters here, but that means that there's going to be long stretches of time where I'm playing as like one character or the other. Level 4 is really the only big exception. I'm going to swap back and forth between Sypha and Trevor a couple times, first to get the Stopwatch, then to use the Stopwatch, then to kill the boss. And I really wish there was another way to do it, but there kind of isn't. Well, actually, I actually could have played this differently, probably. No, well, yeah, I could have, but I didn't. Now that I'm thinking about it. But I'll explain that. So, I absolutely have to play as Trevor to kill that guy, because the only way to kill that guy safely on Sypha is with the lightning, which I don't have access to yet. That torch... Let me go back, actually. That second torch has a cross in it, which for Sypha would be lightning. And actually, now that I'm looking at this footage again, I could have swapped to Sypha right here and picked up this lightning after killing the swordsman, because the swordsmen are pretty tough to fight, but it just didn't occur to me to do that. I actually... No, I didn't do that because I wanted to keep playing as Trevor for the for something in level 5, which I'll explain when I get there. So this was actually not... I could have swapped to Sypha earlier than I did, but this is fine. No, actually, you know what? I was second guessing myself, but this was still the right call. Sorry, I'm I'm going back and forth and contradicting myself, but this was the right call ultimately for like no hit, safe strats. Yeah. I didn't need to swap there. Staying as Trevor like this was okay. Do 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 do. There's some really cool stuff you can do with Sypha in level 4 if you have the freeze, which you're not going to see in this video, but you're going to see that in a different video, and I'm really excited to show that off. But for now, it's going to be more conventional. So here's what I have the stopwatch for. It's for the birds. It's just to get past the birds, because the birds... I think of the Alucard route as being like the tougher of the two routes in this game, but honestly, in the context of a no-hit run, the Sypha route is so much worse because there's so many birds, and I don't give them an inch. That was 4 stopwatch usages in a row, 1 per bird that appears, because I don't I don't want to deal with it. I just don't want to deal with it. I can't handle it. And then because the only other option really for safely dealing with these birds is using lightning, which is Sypha's most powerful spell, but in order to do that, I would have to go into the boss with lightning, and lightning is really good at dealing with the first of these 2 upcoming bosses, but with the second one, using it optimally is pretty risky, and using it safely takes a long time. So I was kind of, if I came into this boss with lightning, I would have to because this is going to be a mummy fight and then a cyclops fight, and fighting the cyclops with lightning can be super fast if you're willing to play risky, but if you're trying to play safe, then it can be pretty slow. So I figured I would rather just stay as Trevor and use the cross to kill this Cyclops, just like I killed the last Cyclops. And it's fast enough on the mummies also. The mummies are also nerfed in the JP version, and I think they're nerfed for the better. Their projectiles are more like predictable, and you can actually like position yourself to avoid them instead of like basically guessing and having to stun lock them to kill them consistently. So that was pretty good. I still I think maybe I probably could have used lightning there and it wouldn't have been too much of a time loss, because that's one more swap to Sypha for the birds and swap back to Trevor for the boss. But I think it probably all evens out ultimately. And plus having the cross lets me get through this part more quickly, which is otherwise tough to do safely. So this is a funny little trick. The cross will come back to you once it hits the edge of the screen. So here I deliberately stop the edge of the screen right next to this turret, so that way the cross hits it like really fast twice both times before it can even get a shot off, and then I go. And this whole level this stage is pretty tricky, and like this is the part that you would think would be tough to save time on, but actually both of the first 2 rooms of 5A are pretty tough to get cleared. And that's why I was ultimately okay with sticking as Trevor through that boss fight, because it meant I could come into the stage on Trevor, use the cross to quickly clear out these turrets, and then clear out the gargoyle section how I'd learned in the past. Because you can clear this out with Sypha and lightning, but it's a little bit, no, it's pretty much the same. It's pretty much the same. You just use more hearts, which can kind of be a problem. Another thing that I love about the JP version is that the knights in the JP version, number 1, have less health, which is good, because I don't think you should have to hit something 8 times to kill it ever. And number 2, takes 2 hits from the cross instead of 1. The cross actually goes through it and back, instead of just like bouncing off of it once in the JP version, which I think is good, because otherwise the only way to kill those guys efficiently is with the holy water, and that's kind of restrictive. I mean, you can kill it with Sypha's spells too, but but the only way to kill them quickly with Trevor is with the holy water. So here's going to be a little bit of slow play, and I want to talk a little bit about Lightning, which is the spell that I just picked up. Lightning is Sypha's strongest spell, but it has some pretty serious limitations in the sense that it's unreliable, and here is that being demonstrated right before your very eyes. This lightning orb is confused. It doesn't know what it's doing. It's looking for an enemy to hit, and because there are no enemies on the screen, and it can't find what is on the screen, it just happens to accidentally intersect that torch, and then it disappears. And this one, you'll notice, is orbiting that heart, and that misbehavior is a problem because you can't fire a new lightning spell until the old lightning orbs have all left the screen. So if there's one like confused lightning orb that's just like orbiting around nothing for like 15 seconds, then you just have to sit there and wait for it to like, I mean, it could go on forever. Like they don't naturally dissipate. They have to hit something to disappear. I didn't actually have to, hang on a sec. I actually did not have to go forward here. I could have walked right back to the staircase because he actually won't hit you if you're standing right at the base of the stairs, but I didn't actually know that. Oh yeah, and here's a funny thing. You can see the bottom of the gargoyle. Where is it? Where is it? Watch the top of the screen. You can see the bottom of the gargoyle for a couple frames up there. Yeah, there it is. Up where it says BLK. The bottom of the gargoyle. It's funny. Yeah, you can't fire another lightning projectile until the first lightning projectile completely disappears. So that can be a huge problem because sometimes lightning will go off and try to chase something you don't want it to hit. Sometimes it'll get confused. Sometimes it'll orbit around weapon or item drops. It's powerful, but it's inconsistent and prone to like you never know with lightning. That's another thing about the Sypha route that makes it tricky is that the birds are really hard, and then sometimes lightning, which is a tool you're really relying on, will just not do what you want it to do. So the turrets in the JP version are relatively merciful. Their patterns are actually pretty short, but I still encountered some variants in this first set of turrets that made me want to play this slowly. That's kind of why I approach kind of carefully also. Let me go back a little bit. Because what I want to do is I want to kill this lower first turret before I even walk up onto the platform. And this is like an input issue where if you take this first platform really fast and walk up to that first turret on the right, you can do a close range lightning shot to kill it really fast. The thing about lightning is that every lightning orb does an amount of damage equivalent to, I think, 2 whip shots, 2 fully upgraded whip swings, which means that if something gets hit by all 3 lightning orbs, it takes a ton of damage, but you have to be really close to make that happen. The problem is that I have to hit up and B to use lightning, and so if I'm approaching this first turret, and then like he starts charging up an attack, then I want to stop and use lightning as soon as I see that. But if I'm too close to the stairs, then I'll go up the stairs instead of shooting lightning, which is not what I want. So that's why I shoot this first lightning on the staircase to make sure that it dies. Also, the thing about the JP version that's better, turrets have less health, so you're not plinking away at turrets for 4 whip shots worth of damage. Or for 6, you only need to do 4. In the JP version, I would call that an improvement. The first set of turrets I encountered some variants on. But the second set I could just walk past every time and I was always okay, because their patterns are slower in the JP version. In the US version, they're a little bit more merciless. And also, this bird here, this was an important trick. Because what I used to do here is I used to get to the top of the staircase, then turn, and I would like jump and shoot a lightning ball. But sometimes that just wouldn't hit him, because the lightning orbs have no understanding of priority. They don't know the difference between an enemy that's coming right towards your face or a heart drop on the edge of the screen. I don't know how they choose their targets. But sometimes lightning orbs lightning just like sometimes wouldn't hit him if I jumped and shot lightning at the top of the staircase. So instead I walked over to the right, because no matter what movement pattern the bird does, he will always end up to the left, because he notices me when I'm to the left of him, which means he's going to swoop to the left in some form or fashion when he first moves. So that's just a more consistent way of dealing with him. Here, let me go back again. This is important. I'm going over this because like killing these birds consistently is super important for a no-hit run. I basically wait until I see him and then I shoot lightning, because that gives the lightning orbs the maximum amount of time to like notice that he exists and then angle up towards him. And that torch behind the bird is really important there because that creates an extra target for the lightning orbs to like go for. So that's pretty consistent. It's hard for lightning to screw you over there, unless you like mess up the timing. This is pretty simple. I stand up here, I walk away, I walk over into this corner on the right because he will never summon falling blocks that land over here on the right corner, and then I jump over any of the blocks that he throws. So I shoot lightning, go back to the safe spot, shoot lightning, go back to the safe spot. Really fast, because my lightning orbs happened to hit him twice a couple times there, which is actually not what I was expecting. And I ended with too many hearts, but that's okay. It's not the end of the world. I probably could have dumped them somewhere or like not picked up some hearts somewhere, but that's okay. I wasn't expecting to kill him in like that few lightning shots in the first place, to be honest, because some of them like hit him twice when I thought they would only hit him once, so that's okay. Level 6 is an absolute non-stop nightmare. And the nightmare begins right here with 6B, because this is like, okay, this level is so scary. I'm just gonna let this play out for a little bit. So this part's okay, because you can kill that bird before he ever even activates. And now you're kind of at the mercy of the patterns of the fishman spawns. They have a couple of different spawn patterns. I don't understand them completely. I think it's just 2 patterns. But unless you play it the same way every time, it's not easy to like work around them. The general rule of thumb that I settled on is after I kill a fishman, I can jump twice, and then I have to stop, because if you jump a third time, then you're in danger of jumping on top of the next fishman that spawns. That's kind of how I played it. I would jump twice, or I would kill something then jump twice. Then I played more carefully when I reached the middle point here, because if it's not obvious by the footage, what's happening here is the water is constantly pushing you back, and then the water on the other side of this waterfall is going to be pushing you forward. So I freeze the waterfall, which is why I picked up freeze back there, and that's another copy of me. I don't quite know what causes this, but for some reason, when you freeze the waterfall and then walk forward, the game tries to spawn. What's happening here is the game has spawned a fish. Like, that's a fishman. That's not me. That's a fishman, as you can maybe see if I can find a right frame where it's transparent. Yeah, that's a fishman there. For some reason, it looks like Sypha when they first spawn in. I don't know why that is. But when the game tries to spawn it in, for some reason it looks like me when it first spawns in, if the water is frozen. I can't explain that. But that's pretty much the safest way to do it. There's really no 100% safe way to do 6B with Sypha, because sometimes freeze, like, I'm going to pause the video to say this, because this is really, like, important. Sometimes freeze does nothing. I'm going to say that again. Sometimes on that river area, freeze does nothing. It won't freeze fish guys who are next to you. It won't freeze the waterfall. It tends to freeze fireball projectiles pretty consistently, but sometimes it just won't freeze the waterfall. And sometimes if you're like in the river itself and you like jump above the river and the waterfall's nowhere near you, hitting freeze in midair will freeze the river. But standing in the river and hitting freeze sometimes won't freeze the river. So it's not as simple as like just freeze the river and go. It's like you have to freeze the river when you're in a position of relative safety, because you have no idea if standing here and using freeze is actually going to freeze the river or not. Like you just don't know. It could just not do it. And then after I get over to this side where the water goes fast, that's when I crouch and I play super safe, because I know that if I see an anomalous copy of Sypha standing in the water, that means there's going to be a fishman there. So that part is just like really... That part is so hard. It's so tough to get it done consistently. The rest of the level is also kind of a nightmare. And I have to play very like cautiously to get it to work the way that I want. This part's okay. You can play it slow. The trick with that part, killing the hunchback, the little like demon rabbit thing, which replaces hunchbacks in the JP version, is that you want to try to kill it before... You don't want to walk so far over to the right that you trigger the turret that's just off screen, because you want to take your time killing this guy. Now I trigger the turret. After the hunchback is dead, then I walk far enough over to the right to activate the turret. Pretty simple. Now we're into the second part of the nightmare, which is this level. There's a couple of different ways you can do this. The way that I do it is very slow and methodical and safe. I take my time killing the turret. I take my time getting up over here. And now, this is the hard part. Okay. Okay, that's all right. So, this knight right here is an enormous problem because... So here's the thing. You notice how I'm standing like right in the middle of 2 blocks as I'm casting freeze here? That's because if you're too far to the left or too far to the right, even a little bit, even a tiny amount, hang on, then when you try to use a sub-weapon to fight the knight, you'll just go up the stairs. And that means you're getting hit because you probably used a sub-weapon when he threw his axe at you. And now you're going up the stairs, and now you're getting hit. And now if it's a no-hit, that means that the run is over. So what I did was, that's why I destroyed the axe with the regular cane staff swing, because I didn't have to hit up to do it. And that way, no matter if it turns out I'm actually accidentally too far to the left or too far to the right, then that way just pressing B won't get me up any stairs. I can just kill the axe and then keep going. So, and then here I back up to kill the turret with freeze. So very slow, very methodical, very safe. But that knight with those 2 staircases on either side of him is like such a huge pain in the ass. I picked up a stopwatch here. The freeze would clear out the turret and the knight much faster. Excuse me, sorry. In fact, it's actually kind of comical that I like killed that knight by hitting him 8 times. But you'll never guess why I picked up the stopwatch. That's right, it's because there are birds. And when I see birds, I want a stopwatch to make sure that they do the same thing every single time. Here I freeze them and then hit them with falling cane swings. Not technically necessary, but safer than the alternative. I pick up lightning. These guys are pretty easy to deal with on first quest. They tend to jump up very far away from you, but this is a very important thing, because this is something that I lost runs to. I made a point of, first I will shoot... Before I do either of these last 2 jumps, I shoot lightning. And the reason for that is that the 3rd lightning orb will hit enemies. Yeah, you see this fishman here on the bottom right? How he's like jumping up into that lightning orb? Standing there and like shooting those orbs before you do any jumps means that the lightning orbs will intercept any fishmen that are jumping up onto the platform in front of you. So it's just a nice like little safety measure. The Hydra is pretty simple. The Hydra boss in the JP version is... his design is civilized because his patterns are the same every time. You don't have to like worry about like split-second adjustments the way you do in the US version. And lightning does 1,000,000 damage, so they just fall over dead. There's a slightly faster version of that kill that you'll see in a future video. But that's a 100% safe, consistent, easy way to just kill him in 2 cycles. Pretty hard to screw up. I guess you could say that that's like too easy, and the Dracula's Curse version is better, but I don't like randomness at all. I'd much rather just know what they're going to do and find the best way to respond to it. So I hold on to lightning here. Or no, I don't. I pick... Oh, right. I remember what happened here. So this is funny. This was like a time-saving thing. So I kill this skeleton, then I go forward just enough to like trigger the elevator. You see how the elevator is visible up there in like the top right part of the screen? I go until I can trigger the elevator, then I go back and pick up the freeze and the heart, so that way the elevator is closer to the position that I want it to be in when I'm ready to do this jump. And if this was a speed run, I would have immediately done the rest of the jumps, but here I'm not in a huge hurry. I'm going for sub 35, so I just wait for the second cycle and take my sweet time getting across these bottomless pits. The rest of this level is going to be pretty much self-explanatory, just using the freeze to get through otherwise bulky enemies. There's some cool freeze boosting stuff you can do in this level, but One of them I think is not actually doable without taking damage, and the other one's just really hard, so I don't do either of them. Freeze is one of the few tools that lets you get up that staircase without getting hit. It's like freeze or the axe or the stopwatch, because lightning actually has a hard time hitting those guys if you try to use it on the staircase. Sometimes it just doesn't. Sometimes it just doesn't. That's the tagline for lightning. Sometimes it just doesn't. What's cool about freeze is that the freeze, even though freeze takes the form of like 6 orbs, the orbs don't get consumed at all. It's not like freezing the fireball will consume them. The orb will just go right through the fireball and freeze the turret. So this is really nice. You don't have to take your time whittling them down. You can just freeze and kill, freeze and kill. Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. This is why Sypha is fun. Because Sypha is interesting as a companion, because Alucard and Grant both give you better movement options. Sypha kind of does with using freeze to jump on enemies, but if you're playing casually, that's not always easy to implement. Otherwise, she just like helps you with combat, and if all she's going to do is help you with combat, she needs to be really powerful, and stuff like freeze and lightning are a great example of when that comes into effect. Because lightning is great at dealing with the toughest enemies to deal with, bats and birds, usually. And freeze can do things like permanently kill the red skeletons, which is really neat. Pretty much exactly what you would want to make this part manageable, because you're dealing with birds. I respect these birds like so much. I kill them all super slowly. I don't try to jump or cane them. I just take the time to wait and freeze them and then kill them. I'm not giving them an inch. I'm not giving them an inch. Because they'll take a mile of my tears when I fail the runs at getting hit by a bird. So now it's lightning time again, because there's another boss rush coming up, another monster mash. This time it's going to be a 3-boss monster mash. Although, wait, am I going to swap back to Trevor for this? I think I swap back to Trevor for this. Yeah, I do. That's interesting. I guess it's because of the Cyclops. I think that must be why I do it, because there's going to be a mummies and Cyclops, then a devil. And the lightning is great on the mummies, and pretty good on the devil, but on the Cyclops, like I said before, it's riskier. And you'll see what I mean in my future Sypha video, because this is one of 2 Sypha videos. Hoping to catch the Cyclops with a whip shot there, but it didn't happen. Instead, just totally safe, throw the crosses, get back up into the safe spot, whittle him down, nice and easy. And really the only difference between that and killing him in the Dracula's Curse US version is I didn't have to jump up on the platforms as much. So it's not like you don't have positions of absolute safety in the US version, you do. It's just like a bigger pain in the ass to utilize them. The devil in the JP version is actually like scarier. His jumps are much faster. His fireballs are kind of puny. They don't look as scary. They don't come out as fast, but his jumps are scarier. And here I run underneath this long jump, because otherwise he takes so long to kill, he has so much health, that if I didn't do that, then I would have been cornered on the right side of the screen if I let him keep jumping at me. So I probably, well, I don't know, maybe not. Because lightning, I keep on thinking about whether or not I could be using lightning to kill the Cyclops without taking any big risks, but lightning on the Cyclops has a bad habit of just like not hitting him, because the lightning doesn't understand where the Cyclops' like damage vulnerability spots are. It just tries to like hit the Cyclops, because you can only hit the Cyclops in the head to do damage. Lightning doesn't know that. Lightning will just like hit the Cyclops' body over and over again and not do anything. So now we're in level 8. Trevor is going to get through all this pretty slowly. I could swap to Sypha here, but I'm not doing that, because Trevor is actually going to pick up the axe in this level. And that has to do with a very specific routing problem that I encountered at the very end, and I'm not going to really be able to explain that to you until we get to level A, because it has to do with the specific layout of level A and like sub-weapon availability in the JP version. But just know for now that I'm staying as Trevor through all this stuff purely so that Trevor can pick up the axe and then get it up to a double shot, which is kind of a pain in the ass, but it was the least pain in the ass of my available options at the time. Yeah, Sypha can do a pretty cool thing at the beginning of this level where, like, if you freeze a bone projectile, you can, like, jump up through the floor, but it's really precise, and you usually take damage while doing it. In fact, you pretty much always take a hit while doing it because you have to jump up into that green orb. So it's not a viable option for a no-hit run, but speedrunners do it. And now this green blob is trolling me because I'm trying to hit it with this axe, because it's like those green blobs are actually super scary because sometimes they'll just like, I just want it to be dead. I don't want to try to like fight this axe knight and deal with the blob at the same time. Because sometimes they'll just like jump at you, sometimes they'll jump up and disappear in the sky and then fall down on top of you. There's nothing you can do about it. So definitely want that to be dead. Don't want to deal with that. This guy's pretty simple to kill. So I have my double shot axe. Trevor's going to now go away until the very end of the game. We're pretty close to the very end of the game, coming up on the Grim Reaper fight. And the Grim Reaper can be safely killed. He can be killed quickly with a couple of different sub-weapons, but he can really only be safely killed with the Holy Water on Trevor or the Lightning on Sypha. The Holy Water Trevor kill is what I did pretty much every time in my old Dracula's Curse footage. You'll see some more variation in Grim Reaper kills in this new batch. But here on Sypha, if you just stand up on the top right here, you shoot lightning and then crouch and spam the cane, and you should get the scythes every time. There's actually one exception. Let me go back for a second. Which is that in this second batch of the second volley of scythes that he summons, I'll let this play out and then pause when it gets to it. First one's pretty simple because the lightning actually catches it. Then with the second one, that scythe to the bottom left, the one that's like right above that middle platform, that one can actually sometimes get you because it's coming at like a very low angle that your cane doesn't cover. So you got to be really vigilant and make sure you get that. The best way to make sure that that thing doesn't hit you is make sure you are standing on the middle of that block and not hanging off the left edge of it. Because if you're hanging off the left edge of that block, then that scythe can like sneak up underneath you and get you. This part is actually pretty, like, lightning is good if you can do like a lightning shotgun there like I did at the start, but otherwise, this is a boss arena where lightning can very easily get confused. Like, something that happens a lot is that you'll go down here and then you'll shoot lightning. Like, if I shot lightning, let me see, like right here, which would be your impulse to do because you think like, oh, he's like right there. You know, you don't want to let him get too close to you. Like, why wouldn't you shoot lightning here? Well, it's because if you shoot lightning right here, like right at this moment, then the lightning will like freak out and it'll just like float around the room. Like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what's going on. And the lightning just like, it just doesn't hit him. So that's why you want to make sure that when you shoot lightning at this phase of the Grim Reaper, the lightning is hitting him quickly because otherwise the orbs will get confused. And that's also why I wait until I know that he's going to be right next to me again to shoot the lightning every time. So the way that you do that fight faster is basically by getting in position for a better lightning shotgun. I think you might actually be able to do it twice. Because the thing about lightning orbs is that lightning orbs won't leave the screen until they hit something. But once they hit something, then their homing properties disappear and they'll just like fly off the screen, carrying over whatever like momentum in whatever direction they currently have. So once you do a lightning shotgun, it's easy to do another one because the lightning orbs are going to leave the screen quickly. So here's the Hunchback Gauntlet of Dracula's Curse, except they're not hunchbacks, they're weird little demon rabbit things. It's simultaneously easier and harder to do this on Sypha than it is on Trevor. It's easier because you can turn around and shoot lightning orbs like that, right? Sorry, there's a plane taking off outside. I live on an airport runway. I live in a tiny box on an airport runway. So it's easier because you can shoot lightning orbs at the demon rabbits that show up behind you, but it's harder because you have to wait until the demon rabbits are like closer to you to hit them with your cane and clear out the ones in front of you. So you just gotta be like really careful with your positioning and your timing for the ones that are in front of you, but you have way more leeway on the ones that are behind you. And also, like, you gotta be careful with 9-1 because sometimes they'll keep dropping demon rabbits after you kind of expect them to stop. Like, they can still keep dropping them even pretty far into that room. Oh, excuse me. Excuse me again. Anyway, we are coming up on 9-2, and 9-2 is definitely one of the scariest stages in the game in the context of a no-hit, especially on Sypha. It's a cakewalk compared to Second Quest, but you'll see that later on. So with 9-2, really I just play this really slow because I can't get hit. That means I'm going to take my time. I'm going to destroy almost every turret. And the thing that makes this stage so nerve-wracking on Sypha is that this is like a prime environment for lightning to misbehave. Because lightning will chase after... Sometimes you'll shoot lightning and you'll like expect it to hit a turret, but then the lightning will like chase after a projectile that the turret fired and like go off in some random direction. And it won't hit the turret, and then it won't hit the gargoyle, and then you're screwed. There's not really like a good way to make sure that doesn't happen. You just kind of have to like hope you get the timing down, and just be very vigilant. Like you'll notice back here, this is probably the scariest part of the whole thing, is when you're on this particular when you're on this platform here, because there's a turret underneath you that's shooting fireballs that could divert your lightning orbs, which I think actually happens. Yeah, I see that middle lightning orb. See how it's like flying off towards nothing on the left? I think that's because it's trying to hit that fireball that's leaving the screen. Yep, that's exactly what it's doing. So only 2 of the orbs hit actual targets, and one of them gets essentially negated. That's why it's dangerous to be up here with that lower turret still alive. But fortunately, enough of the lightning orbs behaved well enough. And I actually almost get hit by this fireball because I'm like looking at the lightning orb projectiles, and I almost didn't notice that this fireball was about to hit me. Yeah, I barely duck in time. Okay, I gotta go. That's another thing that's nice about the turrets having less health in the JP version, is that you only need lightning orbs to behave well enough to do 4 damage instead of 6. Just another one of this version's many, many benefits, in my opinion. I do think that like both versions are really good, and they're like, I would put them right next to each other on a tier list, but I do think that the JP version is inarguably better. I don't really, well, not inarguably, but I think that the pros outweigh the cons. Okay, so that's 9-2, done very slowly, but very, very, very safely. The rest of the level is... But I'm not out of the woods yet, because level 9 is probably, I would say, as big a nightmare as level 6, if not even more of a nightmare. And it's for similar reasons. 9-2 is actually not that bad on the JP version with the turrets that die fast. But 9-4 is terrible no matter what version of the game you're playing, because the problems are the same. None of the issues are mitigated in either version. And this is just an auto-scroller. There is a weird thing that can happen sometimes in the US version on this auto-scroller, which I guess I'll wait to talk about it, because it actually does happen in some of the footage that I have. Most of the footage that I'm going to upload is going to be JP version. I do have one run in the US version, which I'll explain why that is when I post it. Usually lightning is good at killing those skeletons. You might think that lightning could get like distracted by the fuzzballs and like not kill the skeletons, but if you're close enough, usually one of them will notice the skeletons are there and kill them. If I wanted to be super safe here... Well, actually, no, never mind. Because I thought about trying to bring freeze into this part of the game, but that would mean getting there's a torch in that auto-scroller that has freeze in it, but you have to go really fast to get it. It just adds another element of risk. It's easier to just play the rest of the level with lightning. So now we're in 9-4. 9-4 is where dreams go to die. It's hell for Dracula's Curse players if you don't have Grant or Alucard. Grant or Alucard makes it like almost trivial, but if you're playing as Sypha or if you're playing as Trevor, then you have to go through essentially... So remember 6B with like the waterfall and like the birds and the fishmen? 9-4 is basically 6B twice in a row, and watch this. Look at that. You see how close I was getting hit by that? If this lightning orb... Let me slow this down. See that? Look, if this lightning orb doesn't like behave perfectly and kill the bird like right there, then like I'm about to get hit by that bird. And I didn't do anything wrong. I did everything exactly that I was supposed to do. I waited until I was on the far side of the waterfall to shoot the lightning to maximize the chances of this hitting of the bird getting hit, and I still almost don't hit it. So I don't really have much to... Actually, I should probably go back and like give some advice instead of just complaining. My advice would be kill the first bird, and then if you don't jump at all during this part, then you won't trigger the second bird. And then just like watch for the fishmen. The 9-4 is better at giving you warning with the fishmen than the... Yeah, look at this. Look at this. So all I want to do is look at these 3 lightning orbs and then look at that bird and like try to imagine in what universe none of these orbs hit that bird. Well, it turns out it's the universe that we're living in right now, because the bird swoops all the way over to the right, 1 orb gets intercepted by the fishman, a 2nd orb inexplicably destroys a random torch, the 3rd orb orbits a heart, and then by pure serendipity, I think, hits the bird. Or maybe that one was locked onto the bird the whole time, it just took a while, but like, that's what I mean when I say that lightning is strong, but it's like finicky, because that's like a better way to kill those birds than anything else, but like it almost didn't work. Like, it's good if it works. Man, oh man. So that's why 9-4 is like scary, because you're never really on Sypha, because you're never really sure if you're safe. There's an awesome thing you can do to skip this part with freeze. It involves like freezing a bird and then jumping on it like a platform, and it's like the coolest thing I've ever seen, but it's really hard to do consistently. And then like, look at that. They just don't hit him. They just don't hit him. He just perfectly flies between all 3 of the orbs, and I have to kill him with my cane. And like, it's not only is it frustrating, but when you're at towards the very end of a run like this, that's like nerve-wracking, because you're just like, please die. Like, please die when I shoot lightning at you. Please don't like perform evasive maneuvers and like outplay me. You know? The doppelganger is okay, so actually, this looks really easy, and it is, but there is one thing that can go wrong, which is that the fire spell has an upwards component. So actually, I think if I hadn't jumped here, I might have gotten hit by it. Yeah, maybe. Because the fire spell gets like, it's like a cone, basically. It looks like a straight line, but it's really like a cone. So I might have gotten hit by that if I didn't jump there, but otherwise, this is like a perfectly safe, perfectly consistent doppelganger kill. And I even managed to end with 0 hearts, which is unusual for this run. So level 9 is, yeah, 9-2 is like you just have to hope lightning behaves, and then 9-4 is you just have to hope lightning behaves. So that's why it's so awful. Okay, so level A is... Well, okay, well, right off the bat, this is another thing the JP version does that the US version doesn't do. In the JP version, for no reason that I can discern, you start off with 0 hearts when you get into level A, and this isn't a thing where it carries over the number of hearts you had at the end of level 9. You just start with 0 hearts at level A no matter what. So you have to kill this first bird with just your melee weapon, which actually isn't that bad because you start off so close to it. So, because no matter what pattern it chooses, it's going to start off flying upwards. So if you just like jump and attack, you'll pretty much hit it every time, assuming you do it with the right timing. So that's actually not that bad, but it is a little bit like scary if you're used to killing the birds safely with sub-weapons like I am, to suddenly have to kill them with your melee weapon. Anyway, these birds all go down pretty easily to lightning, and I just go right past the skeleton. I don't bother dealing with him at all, because this is just a regular down auto-scroller, but there's a funny trick that you can do here, which is that if you stay towards the top of the screen, then the Medusa heads will spawn on the same like altitude that you're at, but then they move in this like fixed like sine wave function, which means that if you're towards the very top of the screen and they spawn on that altitude, then on their upward wave, they'll despawn when they hit the top of the screen. So you don't have to deal with most of them, except for this spawn right here is the one that you have to actually deal with. And the trick here is that if they spawn on the right, you jump over to the left and duck, and they'll go right over you. And then if you spawn on the left, which happens in some other footage I'll demonstrate when I get to that one, you can just like turn a little bit and duck, and then you'll avoid them like that. So the thing is that this whole level is built around like setting myself up for the Dracula fight. And there are 2 good options for killing Dracula. Well, technically 3, but like 2 that I would want. For killing, I'm going to pause here for a second. There's like 2 options for killing Dracula that I would want, which is either getting the fire spell on Sypha, because Sypha with fire actually fucks Dracula like so hard, it's insane. Like fire on Sypha will just like annihilate Dracula, or the axe on Trevor. Those are like the 2 options that I have. And the problem though is this turret, which you can barely see at the very edge of the screen, half of the turret technically. Because like if you play like a god, like you can just clear this turret out with just the whip. You can clear the turret out with anything if you're playing like tasks or whatever. But if you're playing like a human being, then your options for safely clearing out this turret without taking damage are either lightning, holy water, or the stopwatch. So, and again, I'm trying to minimize character switching, right? Because every time I switch characters, like back and forth, it costs me 9 seconds. So I basically had to decide between getting fire on Sypha, because there's a fire, because that red skeleton in the first room of A1 is guarding a fire torch, a torch with fire in it over there on the left. So I could get fire with Sypha, but if I get fire with Sypha, then I don't have a safe option for clearing out this turret. So that means that I'm stuck on, if I get fire for Sypha, then that means Trevor needs a different sub-weapon. He needs to get like holy water or the stopwatch or something. And there just like wasn't a clean place in the route to do that, basically. And it just made the most sense to get the axe in level 2 on Trevor, and then get the double shot, just be all ready for Dracula, and then do everything from the end of level 8 to the end of level A on Sypha. That was just like what made the most sense to do. It does mean that I don't kill Dracula on Sypha in this footage, but I do kill Dracula on Sypha in other footage, and I want to talk about something that happened here, that's happened in an attempt. So the reason I wait here, let me actually go back and play this all out like continuously. So you have to worry about in this part of level A are the turrets and also the bat spawns, which is why I'm waiting here specifically for a bat to spawn. Excuse me. I'm gonna have to mute that. But what happened in an attempt once was I killed this bat, and then the bat dropped a heart, and I moved a little bit forward and shot lightning at the turret. But because the bat had dropped a heart, one of the lightning orbs didn't. The lightning orbs just like didn't go to the turret. They just like floated around, and then I got hit by a fireball. And I had to end the run, and it was like heartbreaking because it was so close to the end. So that was just really. Oh yeah, there's another problem actually with the routing, which is that whip skeleton down there. So even if I were to come into this room with fire on Sypha, and then with the stopwatch on Trevor, like that whip skeleton is actually pretty tough to safely kill. You really would want either like holy water or lightning to kill him like super quickly and safely, and not like have to mess with his positioning. So yeah, it was like I wasn't really happy with the position that I was putting, because I did want to do a Sypha kill in this run for Dracula, but the routing and the availability and that turret in A1 just didn't allow for it. So this is going to be a Trevor Dracula kill, unfortunately. But don't worry, you'll see a sick-ass Sypha Dracula kill in a future video. But most of the Dracula kills that I upload are going to be with Trevor. Just because Trevor is like the safest option if you're not going for a super fast strat on any of the forms of Dracula, then Trevor is the safest. And I got the double shot ahead of time so I wouldn't have to farm any hearts. I could just go right from the start into Dracula. And 28 hearts is a pretty good number. That's like safe enough. So Dracula, phase 1 of Dracula in the JP version, if you're used to the US version of JP, if you're used to the US version of Dracula's Curse, then you probably have already noticed that the JP version of Dracula is like insane. And I gotta like actually kind of break this down bit by bit. So here's how this works. He gets up, he summons 2 fire pillars. Then he starts summoning a third one. And the way that this works in the US version is you just start moving as soon as you see him lift up the scepter to dodge the fire pillar while remaining within the other 2 fire pillars. And that's kind of the end of it. But it's a little bit more complicated than the JP version because he teleports super fast. Like he's teleporting and like repositioning himself while the fire pillars are... This is pretty funny. While the fire pillars are still up. So you have to position yourself. It's not enough to just dodge that middle fire pillar. It's you have to dodge it on a specific side of it, because otherwise if I was on the left side of this fire pillar, I would have to go over to the left. Or I'd have to go, if I was on the right side of this fire pillar, I'd have to go over to the right. And then I would get like cornered essentially. I wouldn't get cornered immediately, but like you don't want to really do that if you can avoid it. Being over on the left here is much better. But on the left, you have limited space. So my plan was basically to not worry too much about damaging him during the second cycle, and just focus on dodging the fire pillars, while also ending on the right side of the fire pillar, and then ending on the left side again. So it's like left side, right side, left side, right side. That way I'm not getting too close to either of the walls and getting cornered, and he goes down in 4 cycles, which is pretty slow in like speedrun terms. Speedrunners can actually get like 1 cycle phase 1 Draculas, which is crazy. But you need fire or the cross to do that, I think. Phase 2 is pretty straightforward. You do as much damage as you can with the whip at the start, release close to the ground, before throwing axes, just so that way you retained as many hearts as possible for phase 3. And also because you want to save your axes for both phase 3 and also for when he's up in the air like this, because you can't hit him with the whip up here. And there's a funny quirk in the JP version where if you duck next to the throne, then you don't take damage from these, like, whatever, the blood that he's spitting out. I don't know what that is. I don't know if that's supposed to be a flavor thing, like you're ducking behind the throne, or if it's a bug, but it's very useful either way. Now we're on to phase 3. And phase 3 of Dracula is both very forgiving and very punishing. It's very forgiving in terms of like speedrun timing. I'm actually just gonna like play this out while I talk, because he has cycles, and once this second set of platforms start moving, then like it doesn't matter when I kill him, he won't like actually die until the platforms stop moving. And this fight went completely off script, by the way. So yeah, so as you can see, I killed him way before the platforms stopped, but the orb doesn't spawn until the platforms actually stop moving. So let me go back and play out this whole thing. 13 hearts is okay for phase 3. If I'm going for a 2 cycle, like this is perfectly fine. Because a 2 cycle is what I'm going for. That's like the safest option. I don't even know if Trevor can probably do a 1 cycle Dracula, but I don't know how you do it. I only know how to do it with Grant and Sypha. Anyway, so this went off script immediately, because my plan is jump, throw the axe, and then jump forward and throw the axe again. But I don't jump forward, I just jump straight up. And that's like bad, because the way that I learn these games is very like sequential, where it's like rhythmic. It's like do this, then do this, then do this, then do this. And if I screw up one step of that, it's hard for me to like recover and get back onto it. I managed to kind of for a little bit. And then my plan here is to throw 2 axes, and I do this part. Then I only throw 1 when I meant to throw 2. Then I throw 3, and my plan here is to jump to the left, then quickly go back to the right and duck under that that little white line that's supposed to be a lightning bolt, but I completely panic and I just keep running to the left and jump over it for no reason, which is not the plan, meaning I miss an axe and then I have to hit him with an extra whip swing at the very end to kill him. So that was like panic mode, completely improvisational, but because he doesn't technically die until the platforms stop moving, the fact that I screwed that up completely didn't actually matter, because it was a 2 cycle either way. So that's what I mean when I say he's forgiving. He's forgiving in the sense that like a 2 cycle is a 2 cycle, a 1 cycle is a 1 cycle. No matter what happens within that span of time, if he's dead by the end of it, it'll be the same amount of time. But it's brutal in the sense of like, if you go for the 1 cycle, then screw it up, like there's no halfway. You either get the 1 cycle or you don't. I wasn't worried about the 1 cycle there. I just wanted the 2 cycle. And that was as far as I had planned. If I had gotten to a 3rd cycle, I wouldn't have known what to do. I didn't have a plan for that at all. So once I like screwed up my plan to kill, my goal was just get the 2 cycle and leave it at that and forget it. So that's the Sypha no-hit. I hope I was able to convey some helpful information. I was able to explain my decision-making a little bit. This was pretty stressful. This was pretty hard. Really, most of it just came down to the birds in 9.4 and 6B and like getting them to cooperate. There's really nothing like, I don't have any advice for you about that. The thing about the birds is that the birds aren't that hard to kill if you're on a fixed position, because then you can just watch them and like react to their movements and then intercept them. But if you're being pushed around like you are in 9.4 and 6B, that's when you're in trouble, because you just have no idea like what's going to happen. You know, you're not like your position is constantly being adjusted while they're coming at you, and also your attention is divided. Something that happened to me a couple times in 9.4 was I was watching for bird positions, and then like I just got blindsided by a fish man because I wasn't paying attention. So you have to really like be on your A game when you get to 9.4. That's why 9.4 is like the scariest part of the whole game, in my opinion. For Sypha and Trevor. Grant and Alucard, it's very, very different, but without one of those two guys, it's a nightmare. It's a complete and total nightmare. So that's the Sypha no-hit route. Sypha's an interesting character. Lightning is you feel like you're like praying to ancient spirits when you use lightning, because you're hoping that it will behave the way that you want. And I'm sure there's like principles behind like what makes it do what it does, but I don't know what they are. Anyway, again, I hope you enjoyed. I hope I was able to convey some information, and I will see you guys in the next video. In the meantime, as always, keep on Earth rocking. I'll see you guys around.